Chapter 12, Lower Cost and Net Realizable Value. So, objectives: to know the measurement of inventory in the statement of financial position, to explain the lower of cost and net realizable value basis of measurement, to account for inventory write down using allowance method and direct method, to know the treatment of purchase commitments in realism to lower of cost and net realizable value. So now, how to measure inventory. So measurement of inventory in past 2 paragraph 9 provides that inventories shall be measured at the lower of cost and net realizable value, and it's much more known to everybody as LCNRV. So it expressed the state as standards na yung inventories shall be measured at the lower cost and net realizable value. Now, before digging deeper into this, let's first define what is LCNRV. So accounts shall apply the principle of conservatism in the measurement of inventories. So now in applying the principle of conservatism in the measurement of inventory is what first is conservatism. So remember that conservatism is accountant shall lean towards the less favorable outcome for the entity. So we will look on the side that is not so favorable for the company kung saan po mas dihado ang company. Kaya nga po kapag recording natin ng revenues and gains, we really way before the actual transaction to happen. However, for loss or expense, nagkakaroon tayo ng estimations that roots from the concept of conservatism. So, in applying in the measurement of inventory, remember we use LCNRV because an asset shall not be measured and reported at an amount higher than what is likely to be realized from sale or use. So let's say, for example, if the recorded or reported companies of inventories is 100,000, but what you will only realize in those inventories just 80,000, you cannot report inventories at 100,000 if you think that you can only realize 80,000. So, hindi tayo pwedeng mag-exceed sa marirealize natin. So, now, sa perspective ng conservatism, marirealize natin. So, now, sa perspective ng conservatism, yung sinasabi nating realization ay kailangan we apply conservatism and you can only realize amount. You cannot percent it cost na mas malaki sa marirealize na value ng inventories, and we need to be conservative on that. So, we need to check yung inventories ending on that certain realizable value, the cost. Kaya nga po, meron tayong lower of cost and net realizable value. Now, what is realizable value? So, realizable value or NRV is the estimated selling price in the ordinary course of business. So, less the estimated cost of completion and the estimated cost of disposal. So, net realizable value is equal to estimated selling price less estimated cost to complete less estimated cost to sell. So, bakit estimated selling price ang ginagamit? Balikan natin. In past 2, inventories shall be measured at the lower of cost and net realizable value. So, ang tinitignan nating inventory ay yung ending inventory, and yung ending inventory, kailan siya mabenta? Kumbaga, mabebenta siya doon sa susunod na accounting period. Kaya, ESP yung ginagamit or estimated selling price na basis in determining the net realizable value. Now, para ma-elaborate natin yung lower of cost and net realizable value or LCNRV, so magbigay ako ng example para mayroon tayong theoretical transaction. Let's say, nung May 2019, meron kang business, nagbebenta ka ng FS. So, nung May 1, bumili ka ng FS at 100 pesos. So, to record sa pagbili ng FS, magre-record tayo ng purchases, 100 pesos per FS, times bumili ka ng, let's say, 50 FS. So, 100 times 50, that is 5,000. Credit cash na 5,000. So, binibenta mo yung FS mo, pinili mo siya ng 100 pesos, binenta mo siya ng 120, so may tubo kang 20 per FS. So, yun yung gross profit, kumbaga. Now, pagdating ng May 31, yan yung end of accounting period natin. So, gagawa tayo ng balance sheet and ang natira sa inventory mo na FS. So, let's say ito yung FS na binibenta mo, ang natira is 50 pieces. So, gagawa na tayo ng balance sheet. Ang sabi ng past 2, ang inventories shall be measured at LCNRV. So, ang cost ng ending inventory mo ay 10 na FS times equals 1,000. So, kukunin natin ang net realizable value. Alam naman natin na ang FS is pabago-bago ng presyo. At nalaman natin kunyari na ang estimated selling price ng FS noong May 31 ay 50 pesos na lang each na binibenta sa market. And to compute the net realizable value, estimated selling price natin is 50, estimated cost to compute natin is wala kasi kasi nga nagba-buy and sell lang naman tayo, and yung estimated cost to sell natin, let's say meron tayong estimated cost to sell na 5 pesos per FS. Kumbaga, sa taga-benta ng FS, merong 5 pesos na estimated cost to sell. So, ang net realizable value ng FS ay 45 per pieces, and yung net realizable value ng FS natin na 10 pieces is 45 times 10, that is 450. So, yan yung net realizable value. So, sabi nga na sa past 2, again, shall be measured lower of cost and net realizable value. So, ang kukunin nating value is yung mababa. So, yung net realizable value is 450. So, yan yung LC and RV. So, 1,000 is cost, 450 is NRV, 450 is LCNRV. Ibig sabihin, kapag gagawa ng balance sheet ng May 31, ganito ang mangyayari from cash. Kung ano man ang amount ng cash, the accounts receivable, then inventory, at yung 450 pesos lang yung mag-a-appear sa balance sheet as value ng inventory. So, application ng conservatism principle. So, the cost of inventories may not be recoverable under the following circumstances. The inventories are damaged. The inventories have been wholly or partially obsolete, yung parang hindi na siya patok sa masa. Parang yung dati na lumabas na product powder siya na panlinis sa gulay o prutas, safe daw. Parang aanhin pa natin yon na malilinis naman ang gulay using running water from the faucet. So, naging obsolete siya, hindi siya pumatok sa masa. Yung inventory, yung excess production na hindi nabenta will become wholly obsolete. Selling price have declined. So, example, nung nag-COVID, before mag-COVID, ang value ng FS nasa 30 to 40 pesos. Nung na-require, nagtaasan na yung value kasi yung mga resellers, since tumaas na yung demand, tumaas din yung price in a law of supply and demand. Hanggang dumami yung reseller, naging 10 pesos na lang ang FS. So, yung selling price niya nag-decline from 30 pesos. Kung pumili ka ng 30 pesos, ibibenta mo sana, pero biglang nag-drop ang price sa market, lugi ka. So, ang value ng inventory, bababa siya ng, let's say, ibababa mo siya ng 20 pesos. Yung 30 minus 10, kung paano mo lang siya binenta, yung 20 papasok siya sa inventory loss, magiging expense na siya. Next, the estimated cost of completion or the estimated cost of disposal has decreased. So, kung meron kang mga building, nagba-buy and sell ka, and yung services mo, yung inventory, yung ginagawa mong bahay, biglang nagtaas yung presyo ng mga semento, ganyan-ganyan. So, may changes ka rin sa NRV. So, the practice of writing inventories down, ang ibig sabihin ng inventory down is yung value ng inventories mababa kumpara sa cost niya, sa acquisition cost, below cost kung net realizable value is consistent with the view that assets shall not be carried in excess of amounts expected to be realized from their sale or use. Determination of net realizable value. So, inventories are usually written down to net realizable value on an item-by-item or individual basis. It is not appropriate to write down inventories based on a classification of inventories. For example, finished goods or all inventories in a particular industry or geographical segment. So this may be the case with items of inventory relating to the same product line that have similar purpose are produced and marketed in the same geographical area and cannot be practically evaluated separately. So, depende case to case basis pa rin yung grouping para sa pag-compute ng NRV. So, materials held for use in production are not written down below cost if the finished products in which they will be incorporated are expected to be sold at or above cost. In such circumstances, the replacement cost of materials may be the best evidence of net realizable value. Accounting for inventory write-down. If the cost is lower than net realizable value, there is no accounting problem because the inventory is measured at cost. Kung magkano talaga yung cost, magkano talaga yung value per book, iba yung net realizable value. Kapag naman baliktad ang NRV is lower than cost, the inventory is measured at net realizable value and the decrease in value is record yung cost less than NRV, walang adjusting entry. In cost greater than NRV, merong additional adjusting entry. So, methods of accounting for the inventory write-down, direct method or cost of goods sold method, and allowance method or loss method. So, under direct method, the inventory at the lower of cost or net realizable value. This method is also known as cost of goods sold method because any loss of inventory write-down is not accounted for separately but buried is the cost of goods sold. So, pag direct method, lahat ng changes sa inventory kapag NRV is lower than cost, papasok yung changes sa cost of goods sold. So, in allowance method, the inventory is recorded at cost and any loss on inventory write-down is accounted for separately. Ito yung tinatawag na loss method. Yung direct method is cost of goods sold method, kaya siya loss method kasi nga i-establish tayo ng allowance for inventory write-down. Parang yun ang loss method. So, loss in inventory write-down, this is loss at hindi siya expense. So, if the required allowance increases, an additional loss is recognized. So, if the required allowance decreases, a gain on reversal of inventory write-down is recorded. So, additional loss is recognized kapag may allowance na magdi-decrease. Kapag bumaba ang allowance, mayroon gain or reversal of inventory write-down. Pero limited lang siya sa allowance na balance. Halimbawa kasi, yung cost mo ay 2,000 pero ang NRV mo is 1,500. By January 1, mayroon kang allowance na 500. So, nung February 2,000, tapo pa rin yung cost mo. Tapos, tiningnan mo, 1,400 na lang yung NRV niya mo. So, yung allowance mo as of February is 600. Lalabas, meron kang loss na 100. Nung March, yung cost mo 2,000 pa din. And yung NRV mo naging 1,800. Ang allowance mo 200. Ima-minus lang ang 2,000 and 1,800. So, meron ka ditong reversal sa yung reversal of inventory write-down kasi magkano allowance mo ngayon, 200 na lang. By this time, meron kang gain na 400 to decrease because there is decrease in allowance. So, allowance decrease, yung 200, ang 600 increase. By April, ang cost mo ay 2,000. Tapos, ang NRV mo umabot ng 2,100. By this time, ang allowance mo 0. Hindi kukuhanin ang 2,000 minus 2,100 kasi ang measurement natin ng LCNRV dahil cost na yung mas maliit kaya wala ng entry at dapat wala ng allowances ang lalabas lang na entry to remove the allowance. So, tatanggalin ang gain na 200, tatanggalin ang sa allowance sa allowance ng March, yun ang ibig sabihin ng limited only to the extent of allowance balance na gain. So, itong gain na 200. So, example illustration. So, meron tayong inventory A to G, which is categorized 1, 2, 3. And total ng cost is 800 million. Ang total ng NRV is 8,100,000. So, ito yung sinasabi na dapat item to item na kino-compare kung ano yung lower cost ba or NRV. Kunyari, 1,100 na cost, 100 na NRV. So, dapat ang LCNRV is 100,000 in category A na inventory. So, sa pagkuha ng LCNRV, yan yung lower cost or net realizable value. So, yung lower, dapat ang kukunin. Ganon din sa A, B, C to G. So, dapat item per item basis. So, ang grand total ng LCNRV is 7,850,000. I-compute lang natin yan lahat. I-compare lang natin ngayon yung 8 million sa yung 7,850,000. Ay, i-compute lang natin yung 8 million versus yung 7,850,000. So, 8 million less 7,850,000, meron tayong i-write down na 150,000. So, in direct method, i-record natin at lower of cost or NRV, i-record natin at 7,850,000 inventory, then direct sa cost of goods sold. The loss of inventory write-down of 150 pesos is not accounted for separately. Hindi na pinasok ang 8 million and 150 separately. So, ganito ang magiging proforma ng entry. So, pag allowance method, ipinasok mo na ang cost na 8 million din, then tiyakin natin nare-reflect yung loss in inventory write-down. So, the loss of inventory write-down is included in computation of cost of goods sold. The allowance of inventory write-down is presented as deduction from the inventory. So, kapag tinanong ang NVRB is 7,850,000 na less ang allowance, tinawag siyang allowance method kasi nagre-reflect yung allowance, unlike sa direct method na 7,850,000 agad. So, purchase commitments. So, dito, dinidiscuss din kasi ang purchase commitments, same din sa LCNRV. Kumbaga, inventory, then i-estimate din siya ng possible loss. Ang purchase commitments is ito yung nagkakaroon kayo ng kontrata ng ibang company o ibang supplier na bibili ka ng certain goods sometimes in the future at a fixed price and fixed quality. Kunyari, in illustration ng 500,000. Tapos, on a later date, bigla siya bumaba o bigla siyang tumaas. So, kailangan mong mag-recognize ng gain or loss. Ang nare-recognize lang sa purchase commitments is non-cancelable commitment siya. So, any losses which are expected to arise from the firm and non-cancelable commitments shall be recognized. And remember, for example, 500,000, the next month naging 600,000 siya. So, walang loss. Wala kang i-recognize. Nagre-recognize ka lang kapag may losses. Pwede ka lang mag-recognize ng gain kapag the next month. Let's say, on the first month, nag-loss ka. On the next month, nag-gain ka. So, yung pwede mo lang i-recognize na gain hanggang doon lang sa previously na-recognize mo ng loss. So, example illustration, the contract purchase price is 500,000 pesos and the replacement cost at year-end is 450,000 pesos. The market decline of 50,000 pesos is recorded as follows. So, debit loss on purchase commitments na 50,000. So, ito yung other expense. So, credit estimated liability for purchase commitment na 50,000. So, ito yung na-assume na current liability mo. So, the loss on purchase commitment is classified as other expense and the estimated liability for purchase commitment is classified as current liability. So, when the actual purchase is made in the subsequent period and the current replacement cost drops further to 420,000, the journal entry is so bumaba lalo, magre-recognize ka pa ng loss. So, purchases, 420,000, loss on purchase commitment na 30,000, estimated liabilities for purchases commitment na 50,000. So, accounts payable, credit 500,000. Then, yung reverse mo lang yung estimate mo dito sa payable equal ng 500,000 to record the accounts. Yun ang contract purchase price kasi yun ang contract purchase price kasi yun ang babayaran mo. So, yan yung purchase commitment. So, nakalimutan ko is next. So, another problem. So, sample problem 12-7. On November 15, 2019, Yesayer Company entered into a commitment to purchase 100,000 barrels of aviation fuel for 55 pesos per barrel. On March 31, 2020, so nag-agree sila na magbabayad sila ng 5,500,000. I-times lang ang 100,000 sa 55 per barrel. Pero nung December 31, naging 50 pesos na lang. So, magre-record ng loss on purchase commitment equals to 500,000, which is yung difference ng 5,500,000 and 5 million, then credit sa estimated liability for purchase commitments. Nung March 31 naman, meron kang 100,000. So, 54 pesos na lang siya. So, 5,400,000. So, from 5,500,000, naging 5 million. At ngayon, naging 5,400,000. So, ang accounts payable is, sure yan, nababayaran at 5,500,000. Then, ngayon, nagkakaroon ng gain na 400,000 kasi merong 5 million kasi from 5 million, naging 5,400,000 na lang. So, sa gain, marirecognize, sa gain is ang malimit lang is 500,000, which is yung previous loss, then estimated liability for purchases commitments na 500,000 na nire-reverse, then 5,400,000 ang purchases. So, ganyan ang recording kapag purchases commitments. So, required disclosure. So, sa financial statement, for example, nagre-record tayo ng inventory, di-disclose natin ang policies adopted cost formula use. So, carrying amount ng inventories, carrying amount on inventories carried at fair value less of cost of disposal. Then, yung mga recognized expense, yung mga write-down ng inventory, and any circumstances that lead to reversal write-down of inventories. Kunyari, nag-write-down ka na ganito na lang ang NRV. Bakit siya biglang nagkaroon ng gain? Bakit biglang na-reverse? Bakit biglang tumaas? In what circumstance yon? Next, net is carrying amount of inventories pledged as securities for liabilities. So, kapag pledge ang inventory, kailangan ding i-discuss sa FS. That's all for LCNRV. Sir, thank you.